Lonnie? Where's Lonnie? We starting? Okay. Not mine. I've got Shlomi's here.
I thought you might want to.
Okay, I'll see Shlomi.
I'll just step in for a second. Also, Jenya, we moved over, so the people who are not physically here can still be here with us. כן, ג'ניה, עברנו ל... יאללה, בואו נבדוק.
אוקיי.
בסדר. Check, 1, 2, live stream. Maybe no sound. It's fun, even without sound, to just watch poetry. You can get a big board out, maybe just write some of the poems. Yeah, sound tov. Okay. Technical fun never stops. Just go with it. So, shalom, welcome everybody. Really glad to see actual people here. As you can see, we're kind of concerned about connecting other people in to be able to share this with us, but I think it's much nicer to actually be here. And I also urge whoever's here now to maybe afterwards just look around and say hi to other people. I think there's a lot of writers that I know from different walks of life, and I think that just randomly meeting in a bar is something we need to reacclimate ourselves to. With meeting random people in the flesh. That's for everyone to decide for him or herself how safe or not that is. So this, for whoever maybe doesn't know, is a Jerusalem event. Jerusalem is a now official non-profit organization. We promote Israeli literature in English. Didn't know that. Well, it happened.
Do I get a tax deduction for my Patreon?
Yeah. Tax deductions for whoever wants to give us money. That means.
The Patreon.
Oh, and the Patreon, yeah. We have a Patreon to help support financially some of the stuff that we're all doing here. And besides that, I guess I'll just point out, again, Israeli literature in English. I'm really excited to be doing something more translation-oriented tonight, because we've had a lot of local people that write in English, both people that moved here and even some Israelis that are born and bred here that write in English. And this has been a great platform, but I'm really excited about more translated work and getting more of just contemporary voices, which you're about to get to hear and interact with. With that in mind, if anybody here is interested in translating contemporary Israeli literature from whatever language into English, come talk to me afterwards. And then it's not up online yet, but I'm really excited to see Geula here, who we're going to be doing a book release for her as another Jerusalem event at the end of the month here. So if anybody wants to also get email updates, come talk to me. I'll get you in the email list. We have Facebook. Just come talk to me about any of that stuff if you want. And as I said, I'm very excited about tonight. Sarah Sassoon is going to be the MC, and Sarah Sassoon is a writer and poet of Iraqi-Jewish descent. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in Michigan Quarterly Review, Lilith, the Ilanot Review, the Roadrunner Review, and elsewhere. So talk to her if you want to check out some of her own work. She's going to be doing us the favor of framing Shlomi's work for us tonight. And she's also the recipient of the Andrea Moriah Poetry Prize and a runner-up for the Anna Davidson Rosenberg Poetry Award. Her first children's picture book, Shoham's Bangle, is forthcoming with Carbon Publishing later this year. And thank you for making this happen, Sarah. This is really cool. And Sarah's just been so excited about plugging Shlomi into the English language local literary community. So here it is.
Thank you.
Welcome, Shlomi.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thanks, Lonnie. Just to say, Jerusalem is all volunteer-based, and a big shout-out to Besarabia and Jenya for hosting us here tonight, which is really, really lovely. And the biggest thank you of all to Shlomi, who's driven all the way from Bat Yam to be with us tonight and to share his poetry. Maybe just to give a brief introduction to Shlomi Hatuka. Shlomi is very well known in Israel. He's an acclaimed Hebrew poet. He's published 3 books, and I brought them here tonight. It's actually wonderful to hold live books, to be with live people, to be with live poets. He's published Mizrahi, which is Eastern Moon in English, Yabeshet and which is actually were brought out at the same time. They're twins, and I really love them. So we'll be speaking about all of them tonight. And he's more than a poet. He's a musician. He was a math teacher. I don't know if he still teaches math, but I tell you, my boys could do with lots of math teaching. And he's also a podcast host and hosts the very well-known Brit Milah podcast, which I also really recommend anyone who wants to improve their Hebrew to listen in. Shlomi interviews wonderful Hebrew poets like Yonatan Berg, Agi Michel, and many, many others who I've had the pleasure of listening to lately on my long drives. And he brings Hebrew poets to the Israeli public on the Khan Israeli Broadcasting podcast. So it's Brit Milah. Just if anyone wants to look that up, he's brilliant. He's also a social activist, and he, with Nama Katai, you see the translations part of also the names and everything. So this is a night where we'll be discussing all this issue of translation. They founded the association AMRAM, which is an association that investigates, researches, and expresses the issue of and collects testimonies from Yemenite, Mizrahi, and Balkan children's affair, which is the missing children of the 1950s, which is a very important topic, and we'll touch on that tonight as well. He's also set up Tangier's Publishing. You see, we've got a very important poet here tonight, which is a literary cultural platform for Israeli poets to publish their work. It's another active project he does to bring poetry to the people and to make it accessible to publish, accessible to read. And so I'm really privileged to have you here tonight, Shlomi.
Thank you.
To make you accessible in English to all of us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So, just to start, one of the things that the way I came to you as a poet is that I was exploring my own Mizrahi identity, which I came to through writing my poetry. It kind of just slipped in suddenly. My grandparents were Iraqi. And I started looking for other Mizrahi voices, and my friend Tamar Weiss-Gabay told me, you need to meet Shlomi Khatuka. And that's how I came to you. So maybe the beginning question I'm going to ask you is, how has your Mizrahi background impacted your poetry?
Okay. First, I want to say good evening for everyone. Thank you for coming. Sarah, it's like we had Iskat Chavila, how you said in English? You know? Yeah, we had we had the interview, but we had also a lot of talks about poetry and translations, and to sit here and to speak to people, it's really exciting. Thanks, Shlomi, very much for your work. I think to say that you want to connect between Hebrew writers to English, to people who like to read poetry from Israel but don't have the opportunity to do so. It's really, really great. I always thought the USA is very, very far, but sometimes it's close. Sometimes it's close. And thanks for Genia to hosting us here. We learned before that he's from Belarus. His wife is Ukraine. And I also wrote today in Facebook to come to a poetry event in the difficult pictures we see, and we can barely understand the pain and the suffering of people over there. It's very important to me because it's opportunity to say something, and also that the art and the war are struggling each other. So in every opportunity we can put art is very, very important for me. It's like, you know, Walter Benjamin says that the humankind had to choose between war and art because you need one chaos, and you better have the chaos of art. So if someone want to help, also you can donate through a paper that Jenya put there. And also in Purim, you said that everyone that will come here, the money for entering will go. Yeah, thank you.
Thursday night. It's
Right.
called
So
Disputin.
yeah,
It's a party.
Yeah. So it's very important, and thank you. Which one of them? Which one of them?
You want it more?
Okay, to your question. Yeah, it sounds like someone outside asking to come in. Yes.
The door's over here.
All right. Can you repeat the question?
So, okay, to go back to the question, I'm really glad you brought up the Ukraine. By the way, we will be touching on it in Shlomi's poetry. So the question is, I think that we all come from different backgrounds. We've been reading a lot of Ukrainian poetry now, which has been so appropriate. Where we come from influences how we write. My poetry has very much been influenced by my background, and I'm wondering how your Mizrahi background has led you on your journey in poetry. How has it impacted your poetry?
Actually, I think it was, for me, it was, I didn't had another way. I know myself when I start writing, and some of the topic that I was writing about was discrimination and racism, and of course it's poetry, so I wrote poetry, but I think sometimes the hegemony don't let you feel like your topics are poetry related or are a topic that you can write and talk about them. And it's very weird because you can write about the things that you feel, and if you are a minority or suffer from discrimination, this is the event that touch you the most deep and very related to your family experiences. And at the starting, when I think most of the poetry and literature weren't dealing with issues like this, and it's because, you know, if you don't the hegemony doesn't have to deal with topics like discrimination and racism, and everything was so lyrical. And then when you come with your writing, they say, "I don't bring the political to here." And I had a friend who is a poet, and someone asked him about being a political, and he said, "I'm not a political poet. I'm a poet, and this is political." Right. And for me, it's lyrical as it's political. It's the same thing. It's just a matter of which issues, what do you feel with your life? And it doesn't matter what, this is no different between love and war when you write about them. And so at the beginnings, I was writing poems that dealt very, very harshly, very, very harshly. One of them called Blues, you know. One word that I think can depict the feeling that I felt. And so at the beginning, I was writing about these topics, even though a friend of mine, which I like very much, said to me, "Don't mess with them. Don't mess with them. Don't write about this. They always said that, but I don't have another option because I can feel discrimination as I can feel love. It's topics that I feel all my life." So at the beginning, I started to do it, I think.
Right, so it just came through because this is your background, this is who you are,
Yeah.
this is your experience.
Yeah.
It's very interesting what you say, that love and war, it's the same. And
When you write about
when
them,
you
are the
write
same,
about
yeah.
it, and this is a theme that comes out in your writing all the time. This dissonance of life, and this is maybe what we're experiencing now with the current events. Is this very intense feeling that with war comes a lot of other intense feelings, and there's a dissonance always between them. And this is the theme we'll see as we read your translated poems tonight. One more question about the Mizrahi identity. When I say, describe you as a Mizrahi poet, in Hebrew that means one thing, and in English it's another. Is it a tag in Hebrew that you're not comfortable with? And could you maybe explain a bit about that or comment on it?
It's like, I guess it was misunderstanding between the translation. It's like today we're going to have a poet woman, you know?
Right.
You don't have to say it's a poet. Why do you have to say she's a woman? So in Hebrew it sounds like he's a poet and he is a Mizrahi. I mean, but when I saw it in English, it was, I guess, in something other context, I think.
Right.
Like
It's like a different context. I was just wondering if the tag means something else in Hebrew.
it means that you are a little bit racist, I guess. I mean, if you I don't. We use language in very strange situations, but as a minority, as a woman, as a Mizrahi, you have sometimes more sensitivity to words, and this is good for a poet. It's very hard when you're a human being, but for a poet it's good. I have more tools. I have more feelings. But someone wrote to Sarah on a Facebook post. We saw the translation. We didn't know it came from English directly from English. So we didn't understand why she wrote Mizrahi. I didn't notice that. But he wrote to Sarah, and she said, and she explained, and of course we understand. So, but he's not a poet. He's an artist, and he was sensitive to it as well.
Right, because in English-speaking world, to be described as a Mizrahi poet, I'd be very happy if someone said, and she's a Mizrahi poet, she writes about Iraqi-Jewish and her history. So it's an interesting discussion, and it's...
In Israel, the word Mizrahi has so many contexts of feelings, like saying Frecha or Ars.
Wow.
We have another history to this word,
So this is one thing as a translator I'm learning and interacting with you and learning how to translate Hebrew poetry. I'm also learning, I'm translating not only the words, I'm translating you as a poet, and I'm also translating a culture. It's interesting because I was reading about Ilya Kaminsky has a book on Paul Celan. It's a homage to Paul Celan, and even Boland writes in it that until she read the translation of Paul Celan's Death Fugue, she didn't realize why she didn't like other poets being translated. But when she read the Death Fugue, she realized that the poet there had succeeded in translating not just the words, but also the poet. So a translator's job isn't just to translate the poem, but also the poet. And I wonder if I've succeeded. So we're going to start with the first poem of Shlomi's, which he's going to read in Hebrew, and then I will read it in English. It's Iyediyah.
All right. Maybe some words about this book. I wrote it in Crete. It's called I, which is also a negative word in Hebrew for almost everything. And it's also Eretz Israel, if you put it in, how you say Rashi Tevot?
The abbreviation.
Yeah, all right. So it's like, I was so devastated of taking testimonies of fathers and mothers who don't know where the children are. So I went there to relax, and I felt so bitter and so sad. And all the poems were written with very little breath. And it was like a journey. And Crete is wonderful. I mean, have you been in Crete?
I will be going in July.
Ah, all right. All right. So this one, actually talking about children and parents, took me to my parents, and then took me to other parents of children. They don't know where they are because we live in Israel. And this one called Iyediyah. אחרי ששמעתי את הזעקות וראיתי אותו מכה, אני לא יודע אם נולדתי מאהבה. אחרי שראיתי שוטרים באים והולכים, קורבנות קמים ונכלאים, אחרי שגיליתי טבע, שכנים ודודים, אני לא יודע אם נולדתי מאהבה. ועכשיו שראיתי אהבה, אני לא יודע אם הייתי רוצה להיוולד. Wow, you picked a really, wow, tough one. Okay, this is a Sarah.
This is Shlomi. This is Shlomi, by the way.
Yeah.
Island of Knowing. After hearing the cries and seeing him strike out, I don't know if I was born from love. After seeing the police coming and going, victims who rebelled and were jailed for it, after I discovered the true nature of neighbors and uncles, I don't know if I was born from love. And now that I have seen love, I don't know if I would have wanted to be born.
Yeah, it's a very tough one, and it's in the middle of the book, I guess, because it took some time to get there and took some time to get out of there. All right.
So what's interesting, you're right, that the E is a journey book. It's a wonderful book where you take us on your journey, where you're leaving Israel because you are exhausted. And what's interesting for me is that on the journey of leaving Israel, you might arrive to a beautiful island of Crete, but you take everything with you. And in the book, E, you bring everything with you. You bring all the heartache of family. And I did choose this poem specifically to translate because it left me just breathless. But you also bring all the fathers and mothers, as you say, the testimonies, and you write about it. It's almost like you can't escape the ma'agal here, that you might go to an island to be alone and find a breath of fresh air, but you take it all with you anyway. Do you want to speak more about that journey, the idea of this journey of writing poetry, that no matter where you go, you're always taking yourself with you?
Yeah, it's. I think the idea of taking yourself always is something that you can run away from. But actually, I took a lot of me, but I think I remained there. Many things of me, and this is when I'm right. This is what I feel. But I think this situation was very, very strong because, and very, very different because I was like in someplace else, which I couldn't think about what I'm gonna feel the next day. And I was alone. I was taking some 1 or 2 weeks just to be alone. And when you're alone in a different place after you suffered from a very, very secondary trauma, I think, how you call it, it's making something very, very weird. But in the middle, I'm also a poet, and I'm interested about what's happening to me. What's happening to me as a human being, and what's happening to me, why it's bitter. But I like it. I was taking it to the end for my. I mean, as an artist, I'm very dedicated to what I'm feeling. And, like Dr. House, the series. Like he says, when he doesn't know what the patient's suffering, he said, all right, let's make it worse. Let's don't bring him something to drink or eat for 2 days, the wrong medicine, and we'll go, and then we will see what's the problem. So as a poet, I think I like, but not in a bad way, but like giving myself in to the feeling. And in this one, when talking about parents and children, you are going to the very core of mom, dad, and the letters itself. For example, mom and dad are words that you can read from the beginning to the end, at the end, the beginning, also in Hebrew, also in many, many languages, also Hebrew, shemesh, sun. And I was really structuring mom and dad, but also the very letters that combines these words, and then what is island, what is land and island, what is, because land and island are the same, but it's depend on where you are and what do you feel and how many people there are. And I was taking myself, but I was like letting me. I felt like I'm going to path that I wasn't thinking about going to there. But as I say, I was like giving myself in.
So you give yourself space to actually go into it deeply. It's interesting that you say it was the secondary trauma of hearing the parents' testimonies through AMRAM, that they're collecting it, and because for you it's not that secondary. Your grandmother lost a child. A child was kidnapped from her.
Yeah, but I was like interviewing more than I think 500 families. So hearing my grandmother's story, which make me go to this journey, wasn't alike when I was meeting people whose whole life stopped at the point where their children taken away and never gave back, and wasn't given. They don't know where the child, and they live in this moment. And when you came to hear their story, it's the first time someone really came to hear their story. It wasn't like the committee. All right. We have the papers. All right, say what you want to say. All right, what are the papers? And each one of them is, of course, a word for itself. So after taking so many, it was like another feeling. It was like absorbing all the pain, and it was very, very difficult. It's something that I didn't know was going to happen to me when I start taking testimonies. But I'm not regretting about it.
Right. Well, it's a thing as a poet sometimes that we write about things, but doesn't mean that we stop there. Like with Ukrainian poets and writers, I read an article recently about how they've stayed in the Ukraine, these writers, and they're at the fronts with guns fighting for their country's freedom and democracy. And if they can't have guns because one of the writers is pregnant, she's working, aiding everybody else around, and they're working for the cause. They're doing practical things as well as writing about their experience. So sometimes as a poet, there's a thing of social activism which intersects. And for you, how does that intersect?
You mean my political activism?
It's not just. It's almost like the poetry drives you to act. How does that?
Yeah.
How would you reflect on that observation?
Not just me, but maybe to speak to others as well and speak their emotions as well. I think we don't let our emotion go out because people are afraid of other people to see their emotions. But I think this is something that artists can hide from. I think this is the place that give them the power and the strength to do what they want. I mean, to do what they want in art, in poetry. It's something that I say it's one emotion, but if it's something else, it could be another emotion. And the main thing is, it's good to have a major emotion or very significant emotion to write something, because it always heart and mind. It always has to be with emotion, not just logical, not just. But it has to be a poem. I think this is the most significant thing. But it's good that it has so many shapes. I like it. I like when people take their art and give it very, very, very specific emotion or very, very specific atmosphere or event. I like to take things to extreme.
To extremes. And has that fed your social activism though as well? Did the poetry lead you to the social activism, or the social activism feeds the poetry?
I really can't say what came first, because I gathered demonstration on school when there were no water. Like I said, okay, this is a strike, and I led everybody to do a strike in school. and at the same time, I already wrote so many books and write so many little stories, placing my friend in my stories, making some money. But I don't remember what came first.
Wow, so it's almost like part of the whole nature of you as a poet and a writer from a very early age.
Yeah.
So activism emotionally and activism physically. Maybe we should read the next poem.
Come on.
Continent. Ken. So this is from the book Continent.
Alright. אני מקריא בעברית קודם. יבשת. כל היום אני מפטרל, שומר שלא יחדרו אנשים, שלא ינחתו על חופי האיברים שלי, שלא יבחינו ביבשת החומה שגבולותיה ציפורניים ושיער, צוקים ומפרצים, ונקודת התורפה שלה פתחים, נגרים, נוזלים ורוח. יבשת, כמה אנו דומים. היו מי שניצלו אותנו, קראו אוצרות בתוכנו ולא השיבו תודה. גרועים יותר מילאו אותנו פסולת שאינה מתפרקת וכל החיים נאבק לפנות. היו דברים כה מזהירים שחשבנו שהם נצחיים ובשעות בודדות נטרפו. היו חפים מפשע שסופות שנוצרו הרחק בליבנו, יקו לה לרחם. היו ימים שחלחלו בנו מים בתאומות, וימים שעירפנו חינם אהבה. וקרה לשנינו שנותקנו פתאום מחלק שחשבנו לגוף, להמשך הבשר, שרחק ונסחף מאיתנו, נעלם מעינינו. כוחות שלא הבנו פשרם, הזיזו לוחות. תנודות בליבת הכדור כפו עלינו לנדוד. וכשם שגילו ששתי יבשות היו לפנים יבשת אחת, כשמצאו מאובנים דומים משני עברי האוקיינוס, כך מזהים אוהבים ישנים, בודדים, החולקים אותם זיכרונות. והיום לא בטוחים לקראת הבאות, חרדים מפני התמוססות קרחונים, האם יגביאו מעלינו המים ויחסו אותנו כליל או יעתיקו אותנו לדבוק בגוף אחר להינצל. אנו יודעים רק זוגות צועדים, תהלוכות ניצחון, רק אהבה היא כיבוש שנסכים לקבל. ויש מי שפולשים אלינו בלי לשאול, החלומות, כמו מהגרים הממתינים לחשיכה, מטלטלים נסתרים מהעין בסירה רעועה, אנו מתקשים לפענח את שפתם הזרה. חותרים מסוף היום אל שפת היום, רבים טובים חסרי זכר ושם, בים עצום ולא גלוי דיו. מוכנים לעסוק במה שאנחנו לא מוכנים לגעת בו, מבקשים לומר דבר מה. דופקים על דלתנו בלי שנשמע. אנו מפחדים להביט אל תוך עיניהם, הפחד לראות את עצמנו, כמה אנו זקוקים, נואשים, הפחד שהם מטשטשים את הגבולות שלנו, של מי שאנחנו. לכן אמרתי, כל היום אני מפטרל, שומר, שלא יחדרו אנשים, ועד הלילה לא מחזיק מעמד ונרדם, ובלילה הפקרות. מי שרוצה, נכנס.
Continent. All day I patrol, on the lookout so people won't invade, won't land on the shores of my limbs, so they won't notice the dry brown terrain, whose borders are fingernails, hair, cliffs and fjords, vulnerable points, entrances, flowing, leaking and breathing. Continent, how alike we are. They exploited us, mined our treasures and didn't thank us. Worse were those who filled us with trash, which doesn't decompose, and all our lives we struggle to clean. And there were things that shone so bright we thought they were eternal, but in a few hours were devoured. How innocent of sin we were, when storms forged heart deep and struck without mercy. There were days water wept through us into the chasms, and days we showered love freely. And it happened to both of us. We were suddenly cut off from the part we thought was our body, an extension of flesh, spurned and swept from us, concealed from our eyes. Forces whose significance we misunderstood, shifting tectonic plates, Earth's heart fluctuations forcing us to wonder. Just as it was discovered, 2 continents were once one land, with the same fossils found across both oceans. This is how we recognize old lovers, alone with shared memories. And today, we're unsure what's approaching. We tremble before melting glaciers. Will the water rise above and cover us completely, or lift us so we cleave to another body in order to survive? We know only couples march a victory parade. Love is the only conqueror, we agree to accept. And there are those who trespass without asking, dreams like immigrants waiting for darkness, wanderers camouflaged from the eye in a rickety dinghy, rowing from the day's edge to the day's shore. We struggle to decipher their strange languages. Many drown without memory, nameless in the mighty sea, which doesn't disclose ink. We are prepared to get involved with what we aren't prepared to touch. Supplicants say something. They knock on our doors without being heard. We are frightened to look into their eyes. The fear is to see ourselves, our neediness, our despair, the fear that they'll blur the borders of who we are. This is why I say, all day I patrol, on the lookout so no one infiltrates, but I can't hold on until night and fall asleep. And in night's no man's land, whoever wants enters. I couldn't think of a poem that describes the current situation more. Will you describe or explain maybe that this poem, which was written a long time ago, how you came to write it and the different meanings, because it's quite a dense poem and it contains so many layers.
Yeah. I think we are dealing with the same thing all over again, but sometimes it's so metaphorically that we can't figure it out. But there are immigrants all the time, wars all the time, but especially when the immigrants aren't white, it's very hard for them to be accepted elsewhere. Maybe in Israel, I thought it was very, very hard for me, all the situation of showing up back to immigrants. And I was thinking about what drives us to these kind of feelings. I think most of them are fear and control. Control about what other people reminds us, because to think about, for example, for time as something linear, it's not something that I always think about as linear. Sometimes I can say, as Nick Cave says in his movie, everything happens now, the future, the past, and it's all happening now. So what's happening is not historical, but it's something that dealing with our soul. So I guess sometimes they are frightening of our opportunities, of our. For example, I think Ukraine let us all feel like, oh my God, we can be immigrants. It can happen here just because we feel Europe more close to us. But to see these faces and to see these opportunities are very, very frightened for identity, not just I think financial or something like this. And I was remembering that everybody feels like he needs to control about his boundaries, but it's just an illusion. It's just an illusion. So this is why.
Right.
This is how I felt. But also the way to think, okay, I'm like a land, like in a continent. It's something very, very, very big. Sometimes I can feel myself like everyone, yeah, as a planet.
Right.
He has so much history. He has so much events occurred in his life. He's so much, and we can feel sometimes continent.
Well, that's what I do love. This is the way you managed to hold both the truths. I mean, and here I guess I want to address that the last thing you said about that man is a continent, man an island, but within this poem, continent, you hold a truth about invasion. You take it from the personal level to a universal level and back to the personal level again, which is why it speaks so much to us now. What we fear the most when we see the other is our own failure as well. I think we can all relate to that as well. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of fears, and I think that's what's going around at the moment. And what comes to mind when I read this poem is the idea of a poet as a bit of a prophet, that you see in things a truth and tell the truth that maybe no one wants to hear. Just like Jeremiah went and no one wanted to hear his truth. And it makes for powerful poetry.
Thank you. Maybe I just can add, for me it was also a comfort that I wrote a poem that I had many like this in this book, was like a jam, like a jazz, like a jazz, because I really like jazz. I'm playing a flute and alto sax, but not that good.
I wanted Shlomi to
not
play
as
for us
good,
tonight.
not as good. But I like what I do. I had a record. I'm gonna have another one, and it was I like jazz because they have the subject, in the beginning, and then you go to your solo and you look for other scales. Sometimes you change your phrasing, and then at the end, when you almost forgot the subject or the theme, I need to say the theme, I think, you are going back to the theme, and I like it. I like just so much. I mean, I like just so much. So I felt like after writing Island, which were very, very tight and very bitter, to do something very long and very with many pages to take when you need to write a poem, and this is also something that I like to do.
Yes, no, you feel it. You feel the music in it, and you feel the differences between the books very clearly. In Island, it's very short. They're like little islands. Each poem is like an island, and you play with the language there very beautifully with as you explained, the whole idea of the E in the island and the negation of E in Hebrew, which is something I actually forgot to say with E Yediyah. It means island of not knowing in a way, because E Yediyah is not to know. And then you also do, we chose Island of Knowing as the translation, which was a whole discussion. And it's a wonderful thing that this is something I really admire in your poetry, the dissonance, to hold the knowing and not knowing, to hold the idea of refugees and invasion, but also love. There's a lot of love in this poem of continent, of what it is that once upon a time all continents were connected. And that's that's the jazz maybe in it, the highs and the lows, that you capture within one poem so much emotion, which I really admire in your poetry. And all the poems are very beautiful. They're just not all translated. So let's move on to the next poem.
Right. Which is?
Pirchei Hadam.
Oh. פרחי אדם. הגעתי למדבר, היכן שהדמעות יבשות. פגשתי חקלאים, מגדלים יבולים, בחולות מתים, היודעים, דברים נקטפים או צומחים בלבבות. כמו הגבר המצייר בלי סוף את שדיה של אהובתו בבית הכלא הקרוי חיים. כמו האישה המצמיחה ילדות בחיקה כשהירח והשמש מפטרלים סביבה. לא רציתי לדרוך שם, אבל לא יכולתי לברוח מדבר. הכאב סבלני כמו מלכודת. החלומות מרדו בי שם, והעירו אותי משנתי.
Blood flowers. I reached the desert of dried tears. I met farmers growing crops in dying sand dunes who know harvested things continue to grow in hearts. Like the man who endlessly sketches his beloved's breasts in this prison called life. Like the woman who grows girls in her lap while the moon and the sun patrol around her. I didn't want to set foot there, but I couldn't run away. Pain is patient as a booby trap. My dreams rebelled against me in this place and awoke me from my sleep. Now, this poem I chose to translate because I love flowers and I love the idea of blood flowers. Will you tell us a bit more about the meaning? And also there's this recurring theme within your poetry of orbit and patrolling and circling. And maybe that's also the idea with the island, that the island is round. There's always this idea of circling.
Yes, I was wondering why the Yemenite, when they dancing, they do it in a circle, and it was something very very interesting, but has lots of their inner sense of culture on living together. There are two main dances for Yemenite. One of them is holding hands and dancing called Satemani. You know the phrase, and it was very very interesting to feel also when other poets of Yemen, of Jewish Yemen, the very known is Abba Shalom Shabazi. When they write, they always seek for the harmony, for a beautiful harmony. So I guess repeating sometimes make me feel like close in a circle, but I'm always like to put something open at the end. I mean, but more than that I can't say. I don't know maybe the real answer. I don't know. It was a guess, actually.
No, I love that answer,
All
and I
right.
love the idea of the harmony, and I think that's also when you deal with these hard subjects, such as war, such as difficult family situations, you also include a lot of playfulness, but also the other side of it, which is love, which is joy. So you have blood flowers. Flowers are the most beautiful thing in the world, but there is also that other side to it, which is the redness, the blood, this dissonance that we live with as human beings.
Yes, it's. I think it's a question that nobody maybe knows the answer, but sometimes when you did it with something that is hurting you, just to write poem about it, or someone else will read it and see the pain, but he will feel good at the end of the poem. It happens in many kinds of arts, of course. But this one has been written in the desert. So in the desert, I can just answer in the desert, but we are in Jerusalem. So it's like different languages,
Right.
because of the cold, all right? No, the desert is really makes you melting in. I mean, something like
Right.
this. And I had a friend whose tattoos his whole body with flowers. I must every time say, "Hey, I have a new tattoo," and then, all right, it's a new flower. It's the same flower all the time, and he's a very very good friend of mine, and it was also dedicated to him. Actually, in my mind, he knows it. His daughters too. So
It's very special to know the background of a poem, and
no,
yeah.
it's crazy story. He's a very good friend of mine. He's Ashkenazi who doesn't agree with me in anything. I mean, anything. He studies so much just to let me know that I'm wrong. But I don't care because he's a good friend and he has a beautiful, and he has a great daughters and that I also know about, for example, teaching math. My nephews, it's a nephews, אחיינים,
Yes,
נכון?
nephews.
And children of friends, they had the pass. Just they had a past. If they want to ask me question about mathematics, I'm returning to be a math teacher, and hold the situation with the desert, and they encountered Bedouin family, a specific one, and they became good friends with them. So it's really people at the end of the day, it's really people and their connection. And then I was introduced to them. Well, really made me feel like this planet has so many places where you really can live your life with everybody with no problem. So
Yeah. And maybe that's the optimism behind all the pain that underlies your poetry.
And he's a farmer. So farmers are people, very interesting people, farmers. I mean, some of them are businessmen, but to really live with trees and to see this crazy amount of fruits on tree can make you be very very special man. And I think farmers are most of the time like this.
Right, writing about the earth and working with the earth. It's very special, and it comes across in your poem. Do we have time for more poems?
Yeah, I think so. They
Yeah.
came to here for maybe we just read poems. Yeah?
We'll just do
All right,
two
just
more
read
poems.
poems. Yeah.
How about, well, I actually really wanted to read your grandmother poem from Mizrahi.
And what's the other options?
Um,
No, I don't have. No,
the other option
no,
is
just so much
mass.
family in in 1 hour. No, I'm joking. I like
mass.
my grandmother.
Two
No, as
mass.
the grandmother, my grandmother.
Your
right.
grandmother?
Yeah.
I love the grandmother
Yeah.
poem, and I love grandmothers, so what can we do?
No, she's really the one who gave me the most love and influence, I think.
So I relate to that.
I really
Do you want to read from here?
Oh, this was something that my grandmother was telling my mother. She was saying, "Hey, I think Shlomi is deaf," and it was just because I didn't answer to her when she spoke to me in Yemenite, and she didn't understand why I'm not answering when she talks to me in Yemenite, and I didn't know what she wants from me. And at the beginning, of course, when I remember this sentence, it was very, very sad to me to think that, maybe to my parents, to think that everything that connected with my culture is a waste of time. It's really waste of time instead of doing something that is good in this country, that is good in this land. And so I didn't learn to speak Yemenite. I know some curse, one or two, as everybody. And it's so beautiful language. Like Sir and Dumak. It's like go to your mother. Now, it's not Arabic. It's not Israeli Arabic. Sir and Dumak. It has so much melody in music. And so I was disappointed twice. Why twice? And I loved her very, very much. סבתא, היינו באמת לרגע חרשים. אולי גם עיוורים. וגם הורינו שהם החושים הראשונים שלנו בעולם. זוג המחושים. עסקו בהישרדות ולא יכלו לפענח לנו את המראות, לשנן את המילים. למזלי עם זיכרון האהבה אנחנו נולדים וגם במותך את חיה בי. זוכר אותך יושבת מחכה בפתח הבית כמו אברהם אבינו או הבודה, ולא נפגם בחושתם בלשון של הזיכרון ישר מהטבון, ולא נמחק הזיכרון הטיול על כיסא הגלגלים שבוע לפני המוות, בלי לדעת לאן אני מגלגל אותך. וגם אז לא הבנתי מילה ממה שלחשת. אנא מדריה פין בינתי, אנא מדריה פין בינתי. זבת, היום אני לא מותיר סביבי עיניים מחוסות ואוזניים אטומות.
Okay, grandmother. This is translated by Adam Elat. Mazal, I think Shlomi is deaf, my grandmother to my mother. Grandmother, for a moment we really were deaf, and maybe also blind, and our parents too, since those are our first senses in the world. That pair of senses busied themselves with surviving and couldn't decipher the visions for us, or teach us the words. To my luck, we are born with the memory of love. In your death, you also live on with me. I remember you sitting, waiting at the opening of our house, like Abraham, our forefather, or Buddha. And my sense of taste wasn't damaged in the language of memory, straight from the taboo. Not wiped from my memory is the trip on the wheelchair 1 week before your death, without knowing where I was pushing you. And then, too, I didn't understand a word for what you uttered. Ana Maderia fin binti, Ana Maderia fin binti. Grandmother, nowadays I don't leave behind covered eyes and clogged ears. Also your view of love, to my luck we are born with a memory of love.
No, I think you read the end, I think.
Did I read the end?
Yeah, all right.
Sometimes it's difficult to know. This is the problem with translation.
Yeah, Ana Madaref in Binti is who knows where my daughter is. And I didn't give the translation in the book because I wanted who wants to know what it is to go figure out what it is. She gave birth to 2 twins in Bet Rivka in Petach Tikva, and one of the nurses asked her if she wants to take one baby and leave one baby for adoption because she has so many kids at home. And my grandmother was so humid person and so shy, and she had to bring her, I think her sister or maybe aunt, just to have the courage to say thank you, but no thank you. But a couple months later, they told her one of the babies has died, and she has to took the one that survived to her home, and this is what she did. And my grandfather went there, and they told them, "No, we buried her already," or something like this. So yes, it's something very, very emotional for me. So I mean, in this kind of poems, I'm always afraid that I'm not writing well because it's really, really touches me very, very deep. Because in real time, we didn't know to let our grandmother know that we know our pain. We know her pain, and we are doing something about it. We didn't have the chance. But this is the way it is.
And now what you do is you give her a voice through your poem, and you give a voice to all the parents who lost their children with AMRAM.
Yeah.
So this is what poetry is about.
Yeah. And many other great colleagues. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, something about going backwards into the past is also what it is to look forwards. So I chose 2 masks, your poem 2 masks, to read because they've chosen that, they teach that for the Bagrut now, which is the grade 12 English.
No, it was in the unseen 3 years ago.
Oh,
It was an unseen. In the middle of the day, I get received messages in Instagram from children. I didn't know what they want from me. And they actually, what's the deal with? Again, what do you care what the deal is? What do you care in the middle of the day? What the deal with the mask? And then I had a phone from a friend who told me, hey.
Oh, it's in the
And of course, I put it in a frame and give to my mother. Right, right. She wanted me to be a lawyer, so I have a diploma. It's better than a lawyer, right? I mean, lawyer it's boring. You could tell your friends. No, I'm joking. If there is a lawyer here, don't sue me.
I studied law.
I say it's boring. Yeah.
I studied law, actually, but I agree with you. I think it's much more impressive to have your poem read by...
By the way,
young
there are many Jewish. I have to
children.
say, as a religious man, I was a religious. I'm consider myself as a religious man. I was studied at Haroeh in Ramat Gan, which was elementary school, and then in high school, Mechina Begivat Shmuel, very known place to middle, and then in Amit Gush Dan, very religious schools. And when you read the Gemara, I mean the Gemara was a great influence upon me, as same as the Song of Songs. I know the poems that we wrote here doesn't accord with Song of Songs, but believe me, this and the Gemara were very, very great influences about me, about how I write. I like in the Gemara how they know in one sentence to tell you a great, very great and complicated and cynical story. But I think the most interesting thing when you read the Gemara and you read the laws in the Mishnah, that all they want to do is good. They want to, of course, something that we look upon in retrospective looked very old-fashioned, but they always seek to do the good, to prevent the friction between people. So many weird questions. I mean, what's happened to you if you go with your wife after you divorced from your wife and then you went to a hotel and then you was sleeping the night, not in the same room? Are you still married or not? Shai Gnon wrote a story about, I don't know even the name, but it's about couple who is just divorced. They leave the Rabbanut, and they're just walking, and so embarrassing. And and they end the night sleeping in the same hotel, not in the, because he took the story from the Gemara, and I have many. I think it's not the best example, but for example, what's happened when a deer is stuck in the middle of the field? He's belonged to the man who hunt him or to the man who had the field? Well, it depends if the deer was hurt or no. I mean, could he escape from the field? Which is something I don't always think about laws. I mean,
Right.
This is the whole story, actually. Say, all right.
So the importance of, yes, thinking what's right and wrong, but poetry has a different language of what's right and wrong, of what justice is. Let's read two masks, and then we'll read War, and we'll wrap it up with these wonderful poems. Two Masks is quite, it's quite a poem. And it's very fitting for Purim, actually. Next week we're going to be
And for
celebrating
the
Purim.
corona, two masks are for the
corona.
very, very, very anxious people.
And it was written before Corona.
And we're all not going to wear masks.
אורייט, שתי מסכות. כמה שנים לוקח לקרוא את הבושה שנעשתה מסכה, שסכסכה את הגוף כמו מלחמה, שבגללה שנאו העיניים את האור, האוזניים את המוזיקה שנגנה הלשון. השפתיים האשימו את הגרון במבטא, הגוף דחה את החיבוק, הלשון את הטעם, הנחיריים את ריח החדרים, הארונות, הבגדים. הדמיון מנע דחיית זיכרונות וירושת סיפורים. הלב לא ידע את עצמו. אבל הנה גורלך כאדם, גם אחרי שתשוב אל עצמך ותקרא מעל פניך את המסכה, תגלה שעדיין תצטרך לקרוע אותה, פיסה פיסה, מן העולם.
Two Masks, also translated by Adam Eilat. How many years does it take to tear away the shame that a mask creates, which fights the body like a war, which causes the eyes to hate the skin, the ears, the music that the tongue plays, the lips accuse the throat of an accent, the body rejects the hug, the tongue the taste, the nostrils the smell, the rooms, the closets, the clothes. The imagination prevents the revival of memories and the inheritance of folk tales. The heart doesn't know itself. But here is your fortune as a human. Even after you return to yourself and you tear away the mask from your face, you will discover that you still have to tear it, piece by piece, from the world. And speaking about that, I think it's very appropriate to lead on to the next poem,
All right.
Milchama.
Right. Well, I don't know if I really can like stand to say this poem today, but all right.
Why?
No, because there is a real war now. Okay.
Well, this is why I want to read
no,
it.
this is why I felt. מלחמה. הצרחות שרק אתה שומע והאור שמתקלף באיטיות. ריחות שרודפים אותך וזיכרונות נערמים כמו ערימת גופות. אויב שאינך יודע את מיקומו ואלוהים שמביט באדישות. האהבה היא אכזרית במלחמות.
War. The screams that only you hear, and the skin which peels so slowly, smells which chase you, and memories which stack up like a pile of bodies. An enemy whose location you don't know, and a God who looks on with indifference. Love is the cruelest in all wars. I think...
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes.
Well, I think how I read the last sentence, that love is the cruelest, it's because we love that war is so cruel. That because we as humans, we are so human and we form human relationships. A friend sent that viral video of the little girl singing in the basement, the Frozen song, and just that humanity of a little girl being brave enough to sing in a basement of a shelter in Ukraine. It brings tears, it makes grown-up men cry, and if only we can get all the grown-up men to cry so that war could stop, maybe.
Yeah. And I also wrote about, I think, not just a romantic affair, but also about a person you love, but he's gone, and you don't know where he is. I mean, it's almost the same thing to lose someone that you love, and sometimes it's happened because of war, but it's not only a romantic affair for me, for example.
Yes.
Right.
But that's how I read it.
Right.
Yes. That's
Right.
definitely how I read it. Thank you. Thank you, Shlomi. It's been an absolute
Thank you,
pleasure
Sarah.
to
Thank you.
present you to the English-speaking world. Thank you, everyone who's come. Thank you, Jenya from Besarabia. Just a big heads up for supporting the Ukraine, and Jenya's having a Purim party this Thursday night. Not this Thursday, next Thursday night for Purim. Disputin, the party's called, and all proceeds will be going to the war effort in the Ukraine for the fight for freedom and democracy. I think tonight's been a very meaningful night, I hope, and a meaningful conversation of the reality of life, of the pain, but also the optimism behind it. And thank you for
Thank you,
sharing
Sarah.
your
Thank you very
work.
much. Thank you, Luni.
Shlomi.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lonnie. Thank you, Jerusalem. And thank you, everyone, for coming in person and on the...
Yeah, you know, there is a thing about Mizrahi in English. You know that? You know, I mean, but the English was good. I mean, right? There was like, all right, it's good. We have, you know, some of the, I think Mizrahi were afraid of is speaking English because always it was like, you not belong to the
English-speaking
to the
world.
Europe or to United States or something like this. And I really like that we did it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no,
Yeah.
it was awesome. You're awesome. Your
Thank
English
you.
is awesome.
Thank you.
People take baklava?
Everyone, there's baklava.
Made by
It's
the
vegan.
Sarah.
You better say baklawa.
Baklawa. Like I've got your here to teach me how to say the words properly.
At least